Boker Tov. Today's daf yomi is Sanhedrin Samach Vav, Sanhedrin 66. We're going to start on the bottom of 65b, 6 lines from the bottom. The Gemara is defining certain things that we've been discussing, which are associated with black magic, and now it goes into the area of superstition, which is prohibited by the Torah. Some people like to be superstitious, but guess what? It's prohibited from the Torah to be superstitious. Tana Rabbanan ma'onein. What's a ma'onein? It says in Torah you're not allowed to have a ma'onein amongst you. So the Brayta says it comes from an expression of a naim, of eyes. Rabbi Shimon Omer Mavir Shiva Mine Zachor Al Ayin. This is somebody who, for magical purposes, takes 7 different types of male seed and puts them on his eyes, and he does magic through that. It's prohibited. This refers to like somebody using illusions, magical illusions, to trick people with their eyes. And so that's why some are going to be very strict and say magic is prohibited. Most poskim today are say like if it's a magic show and it's very clear, it's not actually magical, it's just a sleight of hand, then it's okay. But some are even strict about that, like the Chai Adam. Rabbi Kiva Omer, that Rabbi Kiva says this refers to Zeh Mechashev Itim V'Shos V'Omer. The Ma'onen comes from onos, from times. This refers to somebody who calculates the times, and he says Hayom Yafel, let's say. So now is a good time to go. Now is a propitious time to go. When Machar Yafel Likach, tomorrow is a propitious time to purchase something. Or he says this is the appropriate time after the sabbatical year is the best time for chitin yafos, for good wheat, or ikuri kinios mios ros, or kinios are beans that are uprooted and not harvested. They won't get wormy and they won't rot. These are not based upon science. This is just based upon what's so superstitious. Tana Rabbana menachesh. What's a menachesh? That says in the Torah. This is also a type of superstitious omens. Za Omer is a person who says pito naflo mipiv. He says, "Oh, my bread fell out of my mouth. I have to be worried." Meaning to say that it's prohibited to be superstitious about something like that. Or mako naflo miyado. Oh, I dropped a stick. That's bad luck. Or beno korolo me'acharav. Or if his son calls him from behind. Or orev korolo. Or if a raven calls him. If a raven flies above his head and cries out, or or if a deer passes him on the road. All these cases are if you think that they're bad luck, that's a prohibition from the Torah. Nachash mimino, or if a snake comes on his right, or a shul mismolo, or a fox on his left side. Or if a person says, we're on the top of 66a, al tastil v'shachris, or he says to the tax collector at top of 66a, don't start with me in the morning first, that's bad luck, or Rosh Chodesh, or today is Rosh Chodesh, or Motzi Shabbos, it's Saturday night, don't start with me. All this is bad luck. You can't say that. That's superstitious, and you know how to do it. The Bryson says, what does it mean? Like those who are menachashim, they are using this type of omens to decide how they are going to live on the basis of weasels or birds or fish, and that's not the way the Jew is supposed to be. That's not the way of the way of the Torah Jew. So now says the Mishnah, Mechalas HaShabbos v'davar shachayav and alzdono karetz val shigatzo chatas. So one who desecrates the Shabbos gets stoning. That's about something, but that's about something that if you did it intentionally, you get karetz, or accidentally, you get a sin offering. Gemara says, Miklal, the ikamidi, the chol Shabbos have the ein chayav and lo shigaso chatas walls the dono karetz. So we see from here that there are some cases where you could desecrate Shabbos and you wouldn't get a sin offering or kares for it. What are those cases? Mahi. So the Gemara says there's tchumen aliba de Rebbe Akiva. This is the prohibition of walking beyond the boundaries of Shabbos, called tchumen, according to Rebbe Akiva, who says it's a biblical prohibition. And havara aliba de Rabbi Yossi, or the prohibition of not making a fire on Shabbos, which Rabbi Yossi says is l'lavyatas. That's just a regular prohibition and not a kares penalty or skila or chatas. And according to Rebbe Akiva, the same about Techumen. So now we say also from this week's parasha, and the rest of the daf is going to be very technical, highly technical, which is always a challenge to retain interest, but that's the beauty of the daf, that it's all types of learning, and we get to access all types of learning. That if we're just looking for the most interesting things, we would never study. And the fact that it's here is an opportunity for us to engage in other types of learning. So it says in the Mishnah, one who curses his father and mother is not going, Rahman al-Atzlan, is not going to be liable unless he curses them using the absolute name of Hashem, meaning to say he has to curse them with the name of God. Kilam b'kinoi, let's say he cursed them with a kinoi. A kinoi it's not the actual name of God, but it's an associative name of God. Rabbi Meir Mechayev Chachamim Pocher. Meir says under those circumstances, you're still liable, but the Chachamim say you're going to be exempt unless it's the actual name of God. So the Man Chachamim, who are these Chachamim who say you're exempt under those circumstances? Rabbi Nachman bar Rabbi Yossi. Now this is the position of Rabbi Nachman bar Rabbi Yossi, who say that if you curse your parents, but it's not with the actual name of God, you're exempted. Tanya, Rabbi Nachman bar Rabbi Yossi, Omer, Benakfo Shem you must. It says in the pasuk, Nokev Shem Hashem Mos you must. Benakfo Shem you must. What does this mean? Matam Omer Shem. What does that mean? Shame. It already said it. It's not necessary. It could have just been Nakfo. Teaches us about our father and mother that you're not liable unless you curse them with the actual name, and that's the position of the Chachamim. Tan Rabbanan. So now the Gemara analyzes the pasuk because the pasuk says ish. It says a man. It says twice will curse his father or his mother should be put to death. So it says ish l'rabos bas tumtum v'orabos bas. Why did it say ish twice? To include a daughter and who also curses, she's liable, or a tumtum bandroganus. If they curse, they're also chayev. Asheri koel es aviv esimo, who curses his father and his mother. Eli ala aviv v'imo. I only know you're chayev if you curse your father and your mother. Aviv shlo imo or imo shlo aviv. Let's say he curses. I only know his father and his mother. Let's say he curses his father and not his mother, or his mother and not his father. How do we know he's liable? Meaning to say that even if he just curses one of them and not if he curses both of them. Tamomar aviv imo kilel damav bo. Aviv kilel imo kilel. Divrei Rabbi Yoshai. Rabbi Yoshai says aviv imo kilel damav bo, which means that if he cursed his father or his mother, he's liable. Rabbi Yonah said omer mashma shneim ke'echad u'mashma echad b'fnei atzmo. We could have learned it the other way. We could have learned it both of them together, or we could have learned each one on its own. Until the Torah comes along and lists them together. And so then until the pasuk comes along and says them together. Most you must, the Brisa says, how do we know the punishment of somebody who curses their father or mother? It says we're in the middle of 66a, most you must, beskila, that they get stoned to death. Many of these psukim are from this week's parasha, but they're repeated in this week's parasha. And the psukim the Gemara is citing are not necessarily from this week's parasha. So the themes are in this week's parasha, but the Gemara is about to cite a pasuk from this week's parasha. Most you must, that the person who curses Rahman al-Atzlan will be put to death. Biskila, they're going to be put to death with stoning. Says the Gemara, are they going to be put to death with a skewer? Or maybe they're going to be put to death with one of the other deaths that are listed in the Torah. The Gemara says, Nemar kan damav bo, v'nemar lalon d'meim ban. So it says here, damav bo, and it says by Oben Yedoni d'meim bam, and by Oben Yedoni it's also stoning. So in both cases we get stoning for this penalty. Also, we already said that if you Rahman al-Atzlan, you hit your parents, that is not stoning. That's a lesser penalty. Cursing is an even more severe penalty than hitting. So now the Gemara says, okay, every time we have a punishment, there first needs to be a warning. So this is the punishment. Onesh shemano asar minayin. How do we know that there's an azara? Talmud Omer, Elohim los tekalel. And this is our parasha for this week. It says Elohim los tekalel, which is the prohibition against cursing your parents. So the Gemara has a discussion about it. But first of all, we don't know what the word Elohim usually in the Torah means God. And then it would be pronounced as Elokim. But clearly here it doesn't mean God. So the Gemara says, let's see what it means. Imayav haya aviv dayan. If his father would be a judge, harehu b'chal Elohim l'sekalel, then he'd be included in the prohibition. You should not curse your father because his father was a judge. Imayav aviv nasi. And if his father was a Nasi, he was the president of the community, That's another pasuk that says you're not allowed to curse. Also, in that same verse, it says you cannot curse the nasi of your community. So let's say his father ain't a dayan or nasi. Let's say his father's not a dayan or a nasi. He's just a regular schlepper. How do we know you're not allowed to curse him? Amr, Dan, Binyanav Mishneim. So now the Gemara is going to do this Binyanav analysis. We compare their qualities and we get to the common denominator. So Lori Nasi Kari Dayan, Lori Dayan Kari Nasi. The Nasi and the Dayan have two different qualities. Lori Dayan Kari Nasi, Share Dayan Atamatsuva Raso. A Dayan, yet you're obligated to follow his halachic rulings. Lori Nasi Kari Dayan, and the Nasi is not like the Dayan. That if you rebel against the Nasi, you're in violation. You're not allowed to rebel against the Nasi. So therefore, they have two separate qualities. So therefore the Gemara says, Lori Nasi Kari Dayan, Shanasi Atamatsuva Amaraso. Kari Dayan. So she Atamatsuva Amaraso, but for the Dayan, you're not commanded, you're not allowed to disobey his halachic psak, but in general, you can rebel against the dayan. It's not a violation. What's the common denominator? They're both amongst your people. And you're commanded that you're not allowed to curse them. So therefore, I'll bring along your father. So this is the source. Your father's amongst your people, and you're not allowed to curse them. Mar says, what are you talking about? That's not enough. But they all have a different common denominator. What's their other common denominator? That their greatness is what caused them to be in a prohibition against cursing them. So therefore, so that doesn't mean that a regular schlepper you can't curse, even if he's your father. So Talmud Omer was the Kalel Cheresh. So there's a different verse. It says in Parashas Kedoshim, you're not allowed to curse a deaf person, and that's B'um Loam Sheba'amcha. That's amongst the vulnerable people of your community, the humble people of your community. Hakasav V'daber. So there we have a prohibition against the greatest and the most humble. Ma L'cheresh Akain Charishaso Garmelo. So you say, but that you can't prove it out from the cheresh, because the fact maybe they can't curse him is because he's deaf. So he's a special, vulnerable person. So Nasi, so you can't learn from that to your father. So Nasi v'dayin yochicho. So let's learn it out from the president and the judge. But you can't. Mao Nasi v'dayin sheking do also garmolan. No, but there you can't curse because they're so great. So the chazar din lo rizeh krizeh lo rizeh krizeh. What's the common denominator? That they're all amongst your people, and you're commanded not to curse them. Also bring your father; he's amongst your people. And you're commanded not to curse him. Gemara says, but there's a different common denominator. There's a different problem. Maybe they're different from your father because these are all unusual circumstances. Maybe then there's a prohibition to curse, but your father's just a regular Joe. Not my father. My father is incredible, but I'm saying in general, a regular father is just a regular Joe. So maybe there's not a prohibition. Maybe there's not a prohibition to curse. Elam Cain. So the Gemara says, if it will be the case that it would not include your father, nichtov kra. So, because why does it need to write 3 verses? Nichtov kra. The pasuk could have written, Oha Elohim, that you're not allowed to curse Elohim, meaning a judge, and then it could say v'cheresh, and we could have learned out the third case from the other 2. It doesn't need to write all 3 psukim. The nichtov kra, the pasuk could have written O Elohim v'cheresh, or nati v'cheresh. So Elohim lo sekalhel and nasi v'amchol lo sar. So why does it need to write all 3? Because once you had 2, you could have learned out the greatest, the most humble, and that you can't curse them. Elohim lamali, meno inyon legufo. So why does it say Elohim? Because you could have learned that from the Nazi. If we don't need it to teach us about a judge, then we're going to learn out that your father also can't curse. But there's a fundamental problem. Not everybody says that when it says in our parsha, Parshas Mishpatim, you could you could say this over at your Shabbos table. Not everybody says Elohim was the Kalel refers to a judge. It could be possibly referring Elohim was the Kalel, possibly referring to God. So this all works according to the approach that says Elohim is a judge. According to the one who says Elohim refers to God, it's Elohim. Michael Maimer. Well, how would you interpret it? The Tanya Elohim Chol Divrei Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel says that the pasuk is referring to a judge. Rabbi Kuba Omer Elohim Kodesh Elohim. It refers to God. The Tanya Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer. And how do we know that you're not allowed to curse God? Tam Omer Elohim was the Kalel. And he therefore learns it out specifically from that pasuk. So you don't have a source to tell us, according to the one that says Elohim is God, you don't have a source to tell us that your father, that you're not allowed to curse your parents. So the Gemara says, Amar Elohim Chol. So the one, according to the one who says that the word Elohim is not referring to God, it refers to a judge, Gamar Kodesh Michol. We're going to learn out that you can't curse God from the fact that you can't curse a judge. Elamanda Amar Elohim is Kodesh, but according to the one who says that Elohim refers to God, Gamrin and Chol Kodesh. Hold on. Are we really going to learn out? Chol, the fact that you can't curse a judge from the fact that you can't curse God? So no, Gemara doesn't ask that question. It first says it in the Brayta. We learn it out from the Kodesh, but that doesn't make sense. The Gemara says, Bishlam Amanda Amar Elohim Chol, Elohim is Chol. I understand. According to one who says Elohim is Chol, I understand. Gamar Kodesh Michol. I understand that if you can't curse a judge, you can't curse God. Elamad Amar Elohim is Kodesh, but the one who says Elohim is holy, Gamar Chol Kodesh. How could you say you learn out that you can't curse a judge from the fact that you can't curse God? Dilma Kodesh is here, Achol is here. Maybe the Torah is telling us you can't curse God, but you can curse a judge. The Gemara says, no, in King Lichtov Kra, Lo Sekal. It would have just written it as Lo Sakel, but not Lo Sekalel in the plural. My Lo Sekalel. Why does it say in the plural? Shmami not Tarati. So the Gemara says we learn out both from the fact that it's the extra lam. Okay, so now says the Gemara. Excuse me, sorry about this. The two lamids add on another idea. It implies, Rashi says, "Shtei klolos b'mashma." It implies it includes two. That's what Rashi says. So now we're up to the Mishnah on the top of Samach Rav Amabei. Says the Mishnah, Habal Nara Marasa, somebody who is Rahman al with a Nara. Nara is generally speaking, we'll see what it means here. A girl between the age of 12 and 12 and a half, Murasa, who is betrothed, she's not fully married. So you get stoning if you're with a Nara Marasa, but Eino Chayv, you're not going to be liable for the stoning unless she is these three things. Nara, or actually four things. Nara, she's made in between the age specifically of 12 and 12 and a half. Pesua, she has to be a virgin. 3, Murasa, she has to be betrothed. 4, Vihiba Beis Avia, she's still in her father's home. She's not living outside her father's home. And that comes to exclude a case, as we'll see, where the father had sent her off on the road to her husband when she hasn't arrived yet. She's with messengers or agents. So that's the only way you get the stoning. Let's say two people had relations with her. Harisho Mitzki, the first person will get stoning, whereas the second person, since she's no longer a virgin, he gets strangulation and not stoning. So the Gemara says, Tan Rabbana, and since it says in the verse, Kia Nara, Pesula, Moraso, Ish, Ish, Bayir, Shachavima, and you take him out, we'll take him a Shneim, El Shara, he Skaltemo, some Avanim. The Gemara says, let's analyze this price. Tan Rabbanan, it says Nara, it says Nara in the verse that teaches us that you only get stoning for being with her if she's a Nara below Bagar, not if she's above 12 and a half. Pesua, only if she is a virgin below Ba'ua, not if she's lost her virginity. Moras, if she's betrothed below Nisua, not fully married. The Beis Avia, in her father's home, Pratal and Masar Ava Shucheba. excluding a case where she was sent out by her father already on the road to her husband. So the Brisa, it says that the Nara comes to exclude a woman who's an adult, but it doesn't say it's excluding a woman who's a minor. So that's a dispute between Rameir and the Chachamim. Amar Yehuda Marav, Zudivrei Meir, our mission that says that if you're with a Nara Marasa, you're only liable if she's a Nara, and that implies excludes a Nara minor, that if you're with her, you don't get stoning. That's the position of Rabbi Meir. Of Chachamim, but the Chachamim are of the position Omrim Nara Marasa, Afilu Katana B'Mashes, that when it says Nara Marasa, you're going to be chayav for stoning, even if she is a katana, even if she's a minor. How do we know that our mission is Rabbi Meir and Lamute Kitana Nami? And it's also coming to exclude not just the Bogeres, but also minor. Dilma Rabbanon. Hey, maybe the Mishnah is the Rabbanon and Lamute Bogeres, and it's coming to exclude only an adult for Sulo, and that's it. On our way, no. So Ravina says to Ravacha, if the Mishnah was just coming to exclude an adult and not a minor, Nara Besua Morasa. Then it would say, when it says in the Mishnah, you're not liable unless she is a Nara Besua Morasa, then that wouldn't be the proper language, because according to Chachamim, it wouldn't say until she's a Nara. It would say Eino Chayev Ela Al Nara Besula Morasa, something by the way. Since the Chachamim are saying it's also excluding a minor, so it would say you're only liable on a Nara Besula Morasa, not until. The word until says implies you're liable also for a minor. Until she's an adult, you're only liable until she's an adult. And that's definitive proof. So our Mishnah is like Rabbi Meir, who just excludes an adult but from stoning, but not the minor, not if one's with Rahman al-San, a minor, and the whole chapter is Rahman al-San chapter. V'suo midi. And that's definitive proof that our Mishnah is like Rabbi Meir. So the Gemara says, when Rabbi Meir says that if you're with an adult, you don't get stoning. If she's a Bogeres Murasa, that you don't get stoning. So, excuse me, our mission is like Rabbi Meir, who says that if she's a Nara Murasa, you get skila, but if she's a minor or an adult, you don't get stoning. So we ask a question about Rabbi Meir. So let's say you're with a katana, muras, according to Rabbi Meir. What's the penalty? Do we say there's no penalty at all? Only skila mimayle. We say, okay, you don't get stoning, but you'll still get strangulation, but you're just not going to get stoning. So what is Rabbi Meir saying? Are we saying that you get no penalty at all, or are we saying you just don't get stoning? The Rav says to Rabbi Yaakov Barada, it's most logical to assume that she just doesn't. You don't get stoning, but you would still get strangulation. The Gemara says, but how could that be? Says Rabbi Yaakov Barada to Rav. It says both of them will die, which means to say they both have to die. If only the man is going to die because the woman's a minor, she doesn't die. So the girl's a minor, she won't die. So then how can you punish the man? So Shastak Rav is quiet. Amar Shmuel, by time of Shastak Rav, name away Mesa Isha Sher Shachavi Malavado. But there's a different pasuk that says that if it was against her will, the man himself dies, but not the girl, because she was forced. But the word Levado there is extra, and the Chachamim say that comes to teach us that if you're with a Katana Murasa, even willingly, even if she says that, even if she gives consent, even though she's not killed, nevertheless, the husband should be killed. So the Gemara says, Kitanai. It's actually a dispute amongst the Tanaim about what does Rabbi Meir. Does Rabbi Meir say she gets no penalty? He gets no penalty, or he gets strangulation. It says, Umesu gem shnehem, achu shnehem shalom. Divrei Rabbi Shai, that they both have to be killed, or else he gets no, or he doesn't get the penalty. Rabbi Yonasan Amar, Umeisa ish asher shachavi malavadon. No, he'll get the penalty, but not her, based upon on that pasuk. Gemara says v'idach, and Rabbi Yonasan ayi umeisu shneim kam shneim ma'idar. What does he do with the first pasuk that they both need to die, or else she doesn't get the penalty? or else he doesn't get the penalty. Amarava lemiyute ma'isa chidudim. It's coming to exclude. He's not liable for death unless it's the bia where they both benefit from it, and not a bia where he just rubs against her and he gets benefit, but she doesn't get any benefit. So that's what Rav is saying. The idach ma'isa chidudim rav kumi. No, this basically this action, which is just where he rubs against her externally, that's not considered anything at all. You don't need a verse to tell us that you don't get death from that. The idach, they say that when Bill Clinton was, like deposed for being with Monica Lewinsky, he said, "Oh, I did not have." He said basically he did not commit any sexual act with her, and they say that he. I heard this from sources that he consulted with the rabbi in Washington, who was told that it's not considered what he did was not considered a sexual act, and that's why he was able to say it. So anyway, that's his Gemara. The Gemara says it's lav kumu, it's nothing, so you're not liable for death. But obviously, it's prohibited. The idach, so according to Rabbi Oshaya, who says that you both have to be that they both have to be punished. What does he do with the word levado? So Gemara says Keditanya, he does it the following way. He learned it out the following way. Let's say 10 people were with the woman, but they were with her Shalok Kedarka, so she still is a virgin. So Kulam Beskila, all of them get stoning, whereas Rebbe Omer Rishon Beskila Bekulam Mechanek, only the first one gets stoning, and all the rest get strangulation. So the Rebbe learns his law out. That so basically levado is extra, and from that extra comes to tell us that even though that the first one gets stoning and the rest gets strangulation. So then the Gemara says, the daughter of a Kohen, she gets reifa. What did we say in this case? Rabbi Omer techila. So he says from the word chila implies if she's the first. What is Rabbi saying? Rabbi is saying like Rabbi Shmuel Tzvirulay. The Amar, he says, by a daughter of a Kohen who commits adultery, that we're saying that only when she is an Arusa, then Yatzal Sreifa. If she's an Arusa, if she's betrothed, we already had this earlier in our tractate, then she gets the Sreifa, below Nisua. But if she's married, then she gets strangulation. And that's what we say. Bia business. If the first bia that she had is when she's in Arusa, then she gets reifa. The idach, but the second bia she gets chanek. My v'chein. What does it mean when Rabbi says levado? Rabbi says in the brayso v'chein. What does that mean? He says ki hasam. Rabbi is learning his law from Mahasam, just like by an Nara Murasa, but Chilas Bia Kamishtaikra. He's talking about the first time. Ha'achanami but Chilas Bia Kamishtaikra. Also by a daughter of a Kohen, it's by the first time. Amalei Rav Bibi Bar Abaye Mar Lav Hachikamar. So he said Rebbe, he didn't explain. Wasn't there an explanation of Rabbi Umanu Rabbi Yosef, and that was Rabbi Yosef, that he says Rabbi Rabbi Meir's Firle. Rabbi holds like Rabbi Meir, the Amar, that if there's a daughter of a Kohen who's married, she gets streifa, not strangulation. But needs says La'acham and Absulin. But if she had been married to somebody who she was not allowed to, and she was Mizana, then she just gets strangulation. So that's Rabbi Meir's. That we had this case earlier. That's how Rabbi Yosef explains what Rabbi is saying. He's going according to Rabbi Meir, who says that if she married somebody she wasn't allowed to, and then she had adultery, she's not going to be considered anymore the daughter of a Kohen to get streifa, but she gets strangulation. If she started biznus and she was mechalelet and she desecrated her kahuna, then streifa. The idach b'chenek. Otherwise, it's strangulation. Umay v'chein. And what does Rabbi mean when he says v'chein? So the Gemara says simana ba'alma, that this is just it's just to tell us that the word techel means mechalelet. So it's just a sign to remind us of this. So now, first of all, I'd like to say a little bit more, even though we're going typically longer than usual, for two reasons. One, since I'm traveling for the next week, we're not going. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to upload the daf for Shabbos. Usually, upload it on Friday, so we'll say a little bit more, maybe another 5 minutes, and so I'll try and get it in now. But I do want over the next week, even though the daf will not be at the regular time, I'm going to put out a message. We're doing the daf for this day now, and if you can join, you can join, and I'll post it on the YouTube and Merit Hashem. So let's go to the Mishnah on Samach Zayin Amid Aleph. Hamasis, what the maces who we're going to say reliable for stoning, because you incite people to worship idolatry. The hedjot, this is the regular person and not a prophet. Masis as the hedjot. Is the masis himself, the inciter himself is a hedjot, and he's also inciting a hedjot. He's inciting a regular person. That's where he gets stoning, but not if you incited a whole community. Amar, so the masis, what is how are you liable for inciting? He says yesh yira b'makom ploni. He says there's an idolatry in, let's say, this place. Kach ochelas, kach shota. This is what he eats. This is what he drinks. Kach mativa, kach Maria. This is how he does for the people. This is the good he does for the people worship him. This is the bad. Kol chayav misos shebetorah ein machminin aleim. All the other deaths in the Torah that we execute for, we don't basically like try to entrap and send witnesses there to see how they're doing this sin, and because they need to warn them, and we don't hide the witnesses. Chutz mizuba, but a masis doesn't need warning, and so therefore you could basically hide the witnesses behind them without the masis knowing, as we'll see. Amar l'shnaim, let's say he incites two people when they're together to idolatry. Hein edav. Then those two people can serve as the witnesses. And so they could bring him to the court and stone him. Amar la'achad, if the mason says to one of them, Hu omer yesh li chaverim rotzim bekach. So the one person can say, hey, I have friends who maybe know this also. And imaya arum, and if he was crafty, if the mason was crafty, he says, I'm not going to be so silly as to talk in front of two witnesses. I'm only going to stand in front of one person. Then we hide witnesses together behind the fence. We can entrap him and hide the witnesses. And then he says to the mason, repeat what you told me. Because the yichud, repeat what you told me when I was by myself. And the Mesa says, and then he says, how can we leave our God in heaven and go to worship stones and wood or in trees? If the Mesa recants, that's fine. And he says, no, this is what we need to do. This is good for us. And the witnesses behind the fence bring him to the court and stone him. Haomer Evod, or Elech V'Avod, or Neilch V'Avod, if the person says to his friend, I want to go worship, or I want to go and worship, or we should go and worship, or if he says Ezbach, or Elech V'Ezbach, or Neilch V'Ezbach, I want to go and sacrifice, or I'll go sacrifice, or we should go sacrifice Achtir, or Ola, Elech V'Achtir, or Neilch V'Achtir, I want to burn something, Anasech, I want to do a libation, Neilch V'Nasech, or Neilch V'Nasech, all of these are expressions of agreement for the idolatry, and so then this person is going to be liable. Just by saying that, he's going to be liable for avodah zarah. That's the implication of this Mishnah. Okay, so we'll stop the recording here, and we say to Rabbi Yosef and to everyone who's on